Looking for magic cards? At flipsidegaming.com you can now use the promo code LVD to get a 10% discount on orders over $10, and starting from now you also get entered into the Guilds of Ravnica booster box giveaway, which runs until October 5th. Hello and welcome to another episode of Wacky Wednesday, a weekly series where I explore wacky deck ideas in both Standard and Modern, and this week we're taking a look at the Desecrated Tomb in Standard, a black-red graveyard sacrifice deck built around the 3-mana artifact from M19 that says whenever one or more creature cards leave your graveyard, you get to make a 1/1 black bat creature token with flying. So that's a nice payoff card to recur creatures out of your graveyard back onto the battlefield, and we've got quite a few of those in the deck, prime example being Reassembling Skeleton, also from M19, a 2-mana 1/1 skeleton warrior that has an activated ability that we can activate out of our graveyard for 1 and a black to return the skeleton from our graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And then of course if we combine that with a sacrifice outlet like Bontu or Makeshift Munitions, we get to start sacrificing the skeleton and then getting it back from the graveyard over and over again, making a 1/1 bat token with flying in the process for each Desecrated Tomb that we have in play. So that's kind of the engine of the deck. So let's take a look at our entire deck list, starting out with our 1-drops where we have 4 copies of Dread Wanderer, a 1-mana 2/1 zombie jackal that enters the battlefield tapped, and for 2 and a black we can return the Dread Wanderer from our graveyard to the battlefield, and we can only use this if we have 1 or fewer cards in hand, and of course if we have a Desecrated Tomb in play, that will also net us a bat token. Next up we have 4 copies of Stitcher Supplier, a 1-mana 1/1 zombie from M19, and when the Supplier enters the battlefield or dies, we get to put the top 3 cards from our library into our graveyard, so helps us put some of those synergistic creatures into our graveyard so we can get them back. And of course, given that we were already running a bunch of sacrifice outlets, we can easily sacrifice the Supplier to trigger it a second time. Next up we have 4 copies of Scrapheap Scrounger, and combine that with the 4 Dread Wanderers, you can kind of see how the deck can also have some pretty nice beatdown draws where you just curve Dread Wanderer into Scrapheap Scrounger and put the opponent under a ton of pressure right away. And of course Scrapheap Scrounger also pretty synergistic in our deck as a 2-mana 3/2 that can block, and for 1 and a black we can exile another creature card from our graveyard to return Scrapheap Scrounger from our graveyard to the battlefield, and that of course will also trigger our Desecrated Tomb. Then we've got our 4 copies of Reassembling Skeleton, which we've already covered, and this is arguably the most synergistic creature in our deck, since it's very cheap to get it back from the graveyard, and we can do that without any other requirements. Then we have 2 copies of Vicious Offering as main deck removal, 2-mana instant that can give target creature -2/-2, but with Kicker, if we sacrifice a creature we can give it -5/-5 instead, so it can also deal with some of the indestructible gods from Amonkhet. And it also synergizes nicely in our deck, since we can sacrifice something like a Stitcher Supplier and get value out of it, or maybe just sacrifice a Reassembling Skeleton so we can get it back out of the graveyard if we're missing another sacrifice outlet. And alongside Vicious Offering, our other main deck removal is Cut to Ribbons, which the cut part can deal 4 damage at sorcery speed to a creature, and then Ribbons can be used as a burn spell to finish off an opponent. And our next card synergizes nicely with Cut to Ribbons, Cathartic Reunion, 2-mana sorcery that as an additional cost we have to discard 2 cards out of our hand to draw 3 cards, so this helps us find our different combo pieces and engine cards, and can also discard some bad cards in the matchup or discard some of our synergistic creature cards that can come back from the graveyard anyways, so we get some incremental advantage. And if we can discard a Cut to Ribbons in some matchups like against control decks, then that's also pretty nice, since we can make use of the Ribbons part, which is still quite effective against control decks, whereas the cut part doesn't do much. Then we have 3 copies of Makeshift Munitions as one of our repeatable sacrifice outlets. It's a 2-mana enchantment, so it's pretty difficult for the opponent to interact with, and for 1 mana we can sacrifice an artifact or creature, so in a pinch we can also sacrifice an artifact, and then Makeshift Munitions deals 1 damage to any target, so it can deal with opposing creatures, can go to the face, can maybe even take out a planeswalker, you name it. And of course we don't need more than 1 copy of Makeshift Munitions in play, so that's why the Cathartic Reunion also comes in handy, so we can discard additional copies. And of course combine that with a Reassembling Skeleton and a Desecrated Tomb, and you can kind of see how everything falls together, since for 3 mana we get to make a 1/1 flying bat token for each Desecrated Tomb we have in play and deal 1 damage to something, as well as maybe chum block with the Reassembling Skeleton if we got it back the turn before and it's no longer tapped. Then of course we've got our 4 copies of Desecrated Tomb, which also stacks nicely, so the more copies the better. And then 2 copies of Bontu the Glorified as another powerful sacrifice outlet, 3 mana for a 4/6 indestructible god with menace, but Bontu can't attack or block unless a creature died under our control this turn, but he can enable himself with his ability. For 1 and a black, we can sacrifice another creature to scry 1, and then each opponent loses 1 life and we gain 1 life, so that's also a powerful engine card combined with our various other synergies, and a 4/6 indestructible body can be very useful on both offense and defense. And then last but not least, we have 3 copies of Squee the Immortal, 3 mana for a 2/1 legendary goblin that we can cast out of our graveyard and out of exile, so a nice recursive ability, and it's a little bit more powerful than Reassembling Skeleton in a few ways. First off, he doesn't come into play tapped, so we can chum block with him right away. Then, being a legendary creature, it can also be an advantage in some scenarios where we're missing a sacrifice outlet, since if we have 2 copies of Squee and a bunch of Desecrated Tombs, we can just keep casting Squees out of our graveyard over and over again, sacrificing them to the legendary rule, and then we can keep making those bad tokens without needing a sacrifice outlet, whereas something like Reassembling Skeleton does need a sacrifice outlet, like Makeshift Munitions or Bontu. Then going over the mana base, we've got 4 canyons, which we can cycle if we're flooding out a bit. We've got 4 Dragonskull Summits, 7 mountains, and then we're slightly favoring 9 swamps here, so we can cast those early Dread Wanderers and Stitcher Suppliers. Then going over the sideboard, we've got 3 Duresses against control decks, 2 Chandra's Defeats against red decks, 2 Sorcerous Spyglass to shut down planeswalkers and annoying cards like the Scarab God, 3 Abrades to deal with creatures and artifacts, an Arguel's Bloodfast against control decks, and also makes for a nice sacrifice outlet once it transforms. We've also got 2 Doomfalls against control decks in case they bring in some creatures out of the sideboard, and 2 Bontu's Last Reckoning, which shines against the green decks, and also pretty thematic with our main deck Bontus. So that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw, and we've got a removal heavy hand with double cut ribbons, but I think this is keepable. We've got our skeleton plus Bontu, which is nice. So recursive creature plus sacrifice outlet is a good place to start. And then we're happy to just draw more lands. Turn 2 we might cut to ribbon something, we might run out a scrap heap, we'll see. Up against a green deck, a red-green, with a turn 2 Druid of the Cowl, so some sort of ramp deck. I suppose using a cut ribbons here is not the worst. The other option would be playing a scrap heap, but I don't really want my opponent to cast a 4-drop next turn, so we'll take out the Druid here. And there's an Earthshaker Chandra, so somewhat aggressive deck as well. Alright, so here we could run out Bontu and then next turn go double 2-drop. That's pretty mana efficient. Yeah, I think we'll run out a Bontu here. A Resilient Chandra pumps the Earthshaker, gets in for 4. And now we probably want to go Reassembling Skeleton plus Makeshift Munitions over Scrap Heap. Don't think we need to cut any of those Chandras. So we've got our combo online. Desecrated Tomb would make it even better. And then just more land, so we have more mana to activate Skeleton and Munitions or Bontu. Opponent gets in with both. We're happy to block with our Skeleton on the Earthshaker here. Take 2 down to 12. Now we've got an active Bontu for whatever that's worth, and a Sarkhan's Unsealing. Alright, that's a scary card. And there's the Desecrated Tomb. So the issue with Sarkhan's Unsealing is that our opponent can just burn us out by dealing 4 to us repeatedly. So we want to start gaining a life with Bontu as soon as possible, or just try and kill the opponent before they kill us. And with a Bontu in play, that's not impossible. My guess is we don't have the mana to play the Tomb this turn, since we want to be getting back Skeleton instead. So we can either get back Skeleton, keep up mana with Bontu to sacrifice a Skeleton, or we can also run out a Scrapheap Scrounger here. I think those are the main considerations. Getting a Scrapheap in play would be nice, since that can start applying some pressure. Although we would be taking another 2 damage from the Chandra at the very least. I think that's acceptable. And then next turn we'll start beating down with Scrapheap, and maybe we'll be more proactive with Bontu as well. We'll see. The Sarkhan's Unsealing only triggers when they cast a creature, so the abilities from the different Kenras out of the graveyard will not trigger the unsealing. Ronas, however, will. So just gonna deal 4 to us, down to 8. And the Kenra's gonna stay home, since we could always sacrifice a scrap heap and then block with Bontu. But now we have the mana to get back Skeleton. Alright, Stitch or Supplier is a good draw too. We also have to start considering using Cut Ribbons on the Resilient Kenra, just so our opponent can't play a Galta and kill us on the spot. Let's see, our opponent's got 7 power, so Galta would cost 5, so if they go land Galta we would be pretty much dead. So I guess we probably do want to use Cut Ribbons here on the Resilient Kenra. Also makes it so it's more difficult for the opponent to attack with Ronas. And then we won't have the mana for Desecrated Tomb this turn, I don't think. But that's okay. So we'll cut the Kenra, see if they have a Blossoming Defense perhaps. That works. So Scrap Heap definitely getting in there. We could also consider playing Supplier, sacking it to Bontu, so Bontu can attack, leave back Skeleton. I kinda like that too. So we'll play Supplier, mill some cards over, and find a Reassembling Skeleton that's a hit. But I think we're just gonna try and be a little proactive here. Sack the Supplier over the Skeleton, get some more graveyard synergies going. And now Bontu can attack. And we'll scry that land to the bottom, I think. Let's see, are we interested in a swamp? So next turn we could go play Tomb, get back Skeleton, and sacrifice it with the munitions. Maybe that's actually fine. Since, yeah, we basically have all the engines we need here, we just need land, so I guess keeping a swamp on top is fine. And then we'll attack for 7. Alright, so it took us a while to figure out this turn. We did have a lot of options. But I think this is reasonable. Keep back Skeleton to block Ronas. And every point of life we gain is relevant here, since the unsealing deals damage in increments of 4. If our opponent has something like a Vine Mare, that could also be an issue, since we only have black creatures here to block with. Instead it's a Steel Leaf Champion putting us to 5. Now Ronas can attack. We would be dead to removal on Skeleton. So we draw our swamp. Also have to remember all those Cut to Ribbons in our graveyard. Could try and be aggressive, turn on Bontu so we can attack with him. But it's kind of awkward since we want to deal 1 damage to Steel Leaf, so it trades if they block the Scrounger. But then our opponent knows about it, so they won't be trading for the Scrap Heap with their Steel Leaf. Could just get back a Skeleton, sack it with munitions, deal 1 to the opponent, attack with Scrap Heap and Bontu. And let's say our opponent doesn't block, then they take 7 down to 4, and we're a little short of burning the opponent out, and that would leave us pretty vulnerable on the way back. So I don't think we can afford to attack with Bontu, but I will definitely attack with Scrap Heap since that thing's not blocking anyway. So we're probably dead to a Galta here if our opponent doesn't block. Opponent takes it. Alright, so we have to dodge Galta. Don't think we're beating that in any capacity. I think we're playing a Tomb here, since we need the untapped 1/1 blocker for Ronas if that attacks. And then we'll say go, and we can get back Skeleton and still have 1 mana up to sacrifice to turn on the Ronas so we can block with it. But we are dead to a number of things. Another Steel Leaf puts us to 1. So the 1 life we gained a few turns ago with Bontu proves to be pretty important here. We could have also been in trouble if our opponent got back Earthshaker Kenra and prevented Bontu from blocking here. Alright, so no attacks, that's good. So now we can get back Skeleton. Make a Bat token with our Tomb. And I don't think we're sacrificing anything with the munitions here. So we'll untap. Pick up another Swamp. Alright, so we have a Ribbons for X equals 5 potentially. But we probably have to spend some mana on other abilities this turn. The only creature that has a clean attack is a Bat token. And potentially Bontu, because of mana our opponent would have to double block. And they would lose a Steel Leaf Champion. But of course if we attack with Bontu we won't have any blockers for the Steel Leaves on the way back. But I guess we have no way of blocking 2 Steel Leaf Champions anyway, so we have to make something happen this turn. So we'll get back Skeleton, trigger Tomb. Then we can sacrifice a Skeleton to deal 1 damage to our opponent. and this will wake up Bontu. And then we probably just have to attack with everyone here and see what happens. Try to force the opponent into some weird blocks that leave them unable to kill us on the way back. So Bontu gets double blocked, so we can kill the Steel Leaf champion, and then opponent would take 2 down to 6. So there's no way for us to finish them off here, but we can kill the other Steel Leaf by pinging it for 1 with the munitions. So technically we're not dead on the way back, unless they have another 4-power creature for the Sarkhan's Unsealing, but there's no way we can prevent that from happening. So I think this is fine. We'll let damage happen. So our opponent now has a Steel Leaf champion with 3 damage marked on it, which we can finish off by sacrificing a Reassembling Skeleton. And we'll play a land, and then we'll say go with 3 mana up, which can potentially get back another skeleton, making an extra bat token. Alright, let's try and dodge a 4-power creature here. Alright, it's gonna be another Ronas, which we won't be able to beat here, sadly. Can gain 1 with Bontu, but that doesn't do anything. Alright, so close game here. The Sarkhan's Unsealing, we kind of mentioned it when our opponent played it. It was going to be a difficult card to beat, and that ended up being the case. Alright, so against a red-green Sarkhan's Unsealing deck, Bontu's Last Reckoning looks pretty good. I think I like Doomfall. Can get rid of a Ronas as well. And I think that's it. I don't think Duress is a realistic plan against a creature deck that only has a handful of non-creature spells. Can probably cut on something like Dread Wanderer, since it doesn't block very well and it's more expensive to get back. I guess Scrapheap is also pretty cuttable, but if we're on the play we might actually want to be more aggressive, in which case Dread Wanderer gets a little bit better, I suppose. The Desecrated Tomb is actually not at its best in this matchup, since the 1/1 flyers aren't very relevant in the face of Steel Leaf champions, Galtas and Ronas. So maybe we actually just cut all the Desecrated Tombs in this matchup. I don't think that's crazy, but maybe we just want to keep 2 of them to still have somewhat of an engine. And then we need to make 2 more cuts. So what else do we want to cut? We're a bit heavy on 3s right now. Could see maybe shaving a Squee. Think we just cut 1 Dread Wanderer, since I don't know what else to take out. Alright, we'll try this. Would like to be on the play. And this hand seems okay, a bit light on creatures, but have quite a bit of interaction, which is good. So turn 2 Scrapheap, followed by Vicious Offering and Doomfall as removal spells. And then we've got our Munitions as a sacrifice outlet for when we pick up one of our recursive creatures. Opponent does have the turn 1 Ladder Elves this time around, which we might actually want to kill with our Vicious Offering while we can. Even though if our opponent does play a Steel Leaf, we do have an answer in Cut to Ribbons. So maybe just developing our Scrapheap so we can get in some early damage is worth it. But our Doomfall also gets worse if our opponent has a Ladder Elves in play, so maybe just killing it is better. Not take any risks here. Alright, not our Ladder Elves. So now we can probably afford to run out a Scrapheap is my guess. Our opponent also played a mountain instead of another forest, so they might be unable to cast an early Steel Leaf champion. They could potentially cast Sarkhan's Unsealing here. Instead it's going to be Goreclaw, which is going to die to our Cut to Ribbons after we attack for 3. And I think we're better off playing a Wanderer here over the Munitions. Say go. But the next turn we can potentially consider using Munitions to take out the Ladder Elves. We'll see how the board looks like. A tapped Memorial of Unity into Ripjaw Raptor. Alright, so the plan here is going to be to Munitions away the Ladder Elves and then try to Doomfall the Ripjaw. And we can actually attack with both here, and then just sacrifice the creature that our opponent tries to block, so they don't get to draw cards from Enrage. Opponent blocks a Dread Wanderer, so we'll shoot down Ladder Elves. And then hope Doomfall can catch their Ripjaw Raptor next turn. Could always Doomfall their hand as well, but it feels like we just want to deal with the creatures that are in play, so we don't fall too far behind on tempo. And there's a Prowling Serpopard, not as threatening as the Ripjaw Raptor, but of course we don't get to choose with Doomfall. And a Desecrated Tomb to draw. Alright, so can attack with Scrapheap, and then we'll see what happens. Opponent takes it. So we won't have a very mana efficient turn here. My guess is Doomfall make him exile a creature is still worth it, so we don't take too much damage from their creatures. So there goes the Serpopard. And there's Regisaur Alpha, so our opponent does have a pretty big dinosaur theme as well. And yeah, Regisaur Alpha is going to be difficult to beat here for our deck. We didn't have enough time to set up properly. Really need a Bontu's Last Reckoning here to catch us back up. So definitely want to attack with our Scrapheap here. And if they block, we can potentially take out Regisaur. Opponent takes it. We can ribbons their opponent for 3, put them to 5, but that's not good enough. And playing a Scrapheap doesn't accomplish anything, so I think we're just dead here. We needed our opponent to block with the Regisaur here, so we could take it out by sacking a second Scrapheap. Since now we're 1 mana short of playing Tomb, sacking a Scrapheap and playing getting it back, so we won't be able to make any bad tokens as blockers. And with 2 damage from our Scrapheaps, we won't be able to take out anything. So yeah, I think we're just dead here. But I guess we'll play the Tomb and say go, on the off chance that our opponent doesn't go for it. There's Resilient Genera, pumping the Dino token, which of course has Trample, so that's a good target for it. I'm pretty sure our opponent's gonna send everyone. Nope, just 2 of them getting in there, but that's still 9 damage. So we're still dead here. If we had a Vicious Offering, we could have survived, but we don't. Alright, GG's, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. And how about this hand? We're missing a second land, especially red mana would be nice. But we do have all the pieces we need. And a 1-drop we can play, but yeah, keeping a 1-lander on the play is kind of sketchy. If this were on the draw, I think I would keep on the play. It's just a little bit too risky. If we miss our second land, we'll be too far behind. So I'll go to 6. And this one's not very good either. 5 lands on a Squee. Don't think we can keep this one either. Alright, we'll keep double Squee. Twice as good as a single Squee. And we'll put that on top, even though it's not ideal. Up against the blue-white deck. I guess Squee is decent against blue-white, since they can't exile it forever. Alright, instead it's a turn 2 Sram, so it's maybe a blue-white aura deck. So I think we just want to kill Sram while we can, before they get too much value out of it. And they have an Adanto Vanguard instead. That one we can block for quite a while until they give it flying. So I think I'm okay with that one. Play a Squee, play Dread Wanderer, and then hope to start picking up some of our combo pieces. Munitions especially would be nice with a 1 toughness Vanguard. And they do have the Cartouche sadly, so now we need our bad tokens as blockers. And a Curious Obsession as well, so yeah. Desecrated Tomb would be your best draw by far here. I guess Vicious Offering might be better if they don't have a dive down to protect their creature. Cathartic Reunion with only a single card in hand, not gonna cut it. Alright, so we're gonna start falling behind every turn their opponent connects with their Vanguard. Don't have a ton of time to find an answer, and every turn that goes by also increases the chances their opponent can protect their Vanguard with a dive down, for example. So our opponent is now up quite a few resources after the mulligan to 5, and having drawn 2 cards with Obsession and double Knight of Grace is going to be quite effective here at stopping our attacks. Did pick up a Makeshift Munitions, but now that the Vanguard has 3 toughness, it's probably too late. So we probably just have to ditch Munitions and Squee with our Reunion here, in the hopes of picking up a Vicious Offering. Alright, instead we pick up double Supplier Tomb. Alright, I guess we'll play a bunch of Suppliers. And nothing too exciting in our graveyard except for a Squee. But that's going to be too pricey for us to get any value from Tomb next turn. Opponent cycles a farmland. And there's Shram. Alright, so we're taking 5 in the air. And not really sure what gets us out of this. And Red Wander's not going to do it. We have a Cut to Ribbons and a Squee in our graveyard as relevant cards. I don't think that's gonna do much here. Alright, so we're dead. On to sideboarding against the blue-white auras, which is gonna be a tricky matchup for sure. We do have Abrade as creature interaction and Bontu's Last Reckoning, even though it's not amazing against Adanto Vanguard specifically, but probably worth bringing in. I'm guessing Doomfall's okay if they have a single creature with a bunch of auras on it. If they're running the white cartouche that makes a 1/1 token, then Doomfall of course looks a lot worse. And we could even consider Sorcerous Spyglass to name Adanto Vanguard so they can make it indestructible, but I think that's a little bit too narrow. Opponent could easily just beat us down with a Stram enchanted by a bunch of auras. So a whole bunch of removal coming in. What do we take out? I think something like a Scrapheap Scrounger is not going to be amazing here, since I don't think we're gonna realistically be able to outrace our opponent, so we just have to play a very grindy game with our removal spells and the Desecrated Tombs, and a Scrap Heap doesn't really fit into that plan as well as some of our other cards, and same goes for the Dread Wanderer, I think. So we'll take 3 copies of those out as well. And yeah, just try this, hope to hit an early Reassembling Skeleton or Squee to start out-grinding our opponent. Would like to be on the play. And yeah, I mean, the Sands definitely missing some of the key pieces, but double Cut Ribbons could keep us alive for a while. Especially if the opponent doesn't have Adanto Vanguard as their threat. Alright, let's run out a skeleton. It's gonna be a Stram, which is gonna meet Cut to Ribbons. And an attack for 1. Alright, so we managed to kill their first threat, but Adanto Vanguard's gonna be an annoying one here. So hoping to pick up a Vicious Offering or a Doomfall as soon as possible. Instead it's an Abrade, which is not gonna get it done here. Alright, let's attack for 1. Might be able to get a bit of life out of this Vanguard if they try and protect it. And until they give it flying, I suppose we've got our skeletons to block with. It's only until they play Cartouche that Vanguard starts becoming an issue. And Cartouche Solidarity, so that's going to protect them from a Doomfall effect. Alright, might as well Abrade now, make him spend the 4 life. I think that's more important than killing the warrior token here, since we can always cut it if we have to. There's Curious Obsession, so we'll happily block here. Let's lead with our Supplier. Mills over Vicious Offering, Munitions and Swamp, so would have liked to draw that Vicious Offering. Yeah, guess we're saying go and then getting back a skeleton end of turn. And then hope to dodge Cartouche of Knowledge specifically. Yep, opponent seems to have it every time. So now our outs start diminishing quickly. If we draw a Doomfall, we first need to get rid of the warrior token. So now we're hoping to draw into a Desecrated Tomb, I suppose, make those 1/1 bad tokens to block with. So let's get back skeleton end of turn. And instead pick up a Bontu. Can of course still make our opponent lose 4 life by casting Cut on the Vanguard. Opponent happy to trade here, so if we had a Doomfall we could have gotten rid of the Adanto Vanguard nicely here. Instead we milled a Desecrated Tomb, sadly. Probably just want to play Bontu here. And somehow try to apply enough pressure. Opponent also seems to be missing their land drops, which might help. It's going to be another Cartouche of Solidarity. Bontu does have a Menace, so that's relevant. And a second Curious Obsession on the Vanguard. Alright, so that's going to hit us for quite a bit. And draw the opponent 2 cards, so they're pretty likely to find a land here. So we've got a 1 turn to find an answer. Opponent discards Sacred Cat to hand size, mount in the draw. So we're nowhere close to threatening lethal here, even with the ribbons in the graveyard. So I think our only hope is that our opponent forgets to make their Adanta Vanguard indestructible. So let's sacrifice a skeleton, get in for 5, and then cast Reckoning. Alright, our opponent remembered, so they take 4, down to 3, and that's gonna do it. So maybe there was a window somewhere where we could have cast Cut on the Vanguard to make our opponent lose 4 more life. That could have definitely been relevant here. But I think we mostly tapped out every turn. Alright, that's too bad. Didn't find the cards we needed to deal with the Vanguard in time. So on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. And this hand seems acceptable. Just a nice beatdown draw with a Cut to Ribbons as interaction. So we've got our turn 1 Dread Wanderer into Scrapheap. We're missing double red for Squee currently, but I'm sure we'll either find some red mana or some other things we can do in the meantime. And turn 1 Legion's Landing. Alright, that's fine. A normal aggro deck would be pretty sad to see a turn 1 life-linking token here to block the Wanderer, but since we've got a very good late game, we're actually not too sad here. Opponent does accept the trade. That's good. Play a Scrapheap, say go. And then we're hoping to pick up cards like the Munitions, cards like the Desecrated Tomb. Opponent has a second Legion's Landing. So they seem to be on a mono-white token or vampire deck. Alright, another Cut to Ribbons. Not the best against tokens, but could come in handy later. So this turn we're just playing a Squee. And I will happily trade resources here. Opponent says go, pick up a Canyon. We do want to hit our land drops, and we can even use a lot of lands in the late game. But we are missing one of our engine cards, so there's a chance we want to cycle this Canyon instead. I think that's reasonable. Pick up a Stitcher Supplier, that's a fine play here. Let's attack for 3. And play our Supplier. And hope to mill over some goodies. And yeah, that counts. We've got our Dread Wanderer that we can get back eventually. And there's an Aerial Responder, so maybe our opponent with a life gain deck instead. Responder is a good target for Cut to Ribbons. And land means we can also get back our Dread Wanderer this turn. So that worked out. So even though we're happy to play a long game, our aggressive plan is working out pretty well here. It's gonna be another Responder, which is gonna meet the same fate here. And then we can add a Squee to the board after attacking. So we still haven't really assembled our different engines, but so far so good. And with double Cut to Ribbons in the graveyard, we can definitely burn out our opponent here. And our opponent scoops it up. Alright, so onto sideboarding against a mono-white life gain aggro type deck. Last Reckoning could be okay, since they do seem like a creature deck. And we could also consider Abrade, but we don't have to go too heavy on removal spells. I think we like Cut to Ribbons, Vicious Offering, seems fine. So I think we are probably just making 2 cuts for the Last Reckonings here. And I could see cutting the Dread Wanderer since they trade for the 1/1s that our opponent showed us. And I think we prefer cards like Reassembling Skeleton in general. Scrapheap seem to line up pretty well against their threat since it could attack pass her 1/1s and their 2/3s. Yeah, I think we'll just cut 2 Dread Wanderers. Could also consider maybe shaving some Bontu since the opponent is likely to have answers to it, or maybe some Makeshift Munitions, but I think I like this setup. Alright, so this one's definitely sketchy if we miss on a second land, but we do have Cathartic Reunion, which can just discard Reassembling Skeletons, 2 draws, 3 fresh cards. So I think on the draw we can probably risk it, because it is a very powerful hand, given that we have our Desecrated Tomb and double Skeleton, and we've got 2 draw steps to get there, as opposed to just 1. And there we go, perfect. So turn 2 Reunion, we'll probably discard double Skeletons, my guess. Unless we are in need of a blocker, then we might discard a Scrapheap instead of a Skeleton. Could also, now that we picked up more lands, just play a Scrapheap on turn 2. That might also be fine. And then next turn we can go Reunion plus tap land. Yeah, that seems reasonable. Apply a little bit of early pressure. If we didn't draw land here, I would be more inclined to cast a Reunion, so we make sure we hit our land drops for the foreseeable future. 3 mana for Resplendent Angel, that's fine. So we have an answer to the Angel here in Cut to Ribbons, and now also Vicious Offering. And there's a chance our opponent casts a Renewed Faith to gain 6 life to make a 4/4 Angel token. But I think that's a risk I'm willing to take here. We even have the Desecrated Tomb, which can make some flying blockers if it comes down to it. And just casting a Reunion here is going to be quite useful. So we'll discard double Skeleton. And pick up some more goodies. Make sure to play out our land. Alright, so let's see how this turn goes. Opponent's got 4 mana. And they have a Banalish Marshal. Alright. So we might have to spend a turn using a removal spell here, just to relieve a little bit of pressure. Or we could try and get this Desecrated Tomb into play. Ideally we draw some more lands. So we're definitely attacking with our Scrapheap. And then the question is, do we just kill the Angel? Do we just kill the Marshal? Do we try and kill both? My guess is just cut on the Angel this turn is sufficient. And then we can also cast a Cathartic Reunion. See what happens. Alright, that worked. And now we'll Reunion, discarding Squee and Dread Wanderer. Try and find more lands. Perfect. And now we can play Desecrated Tomb next turn, get back Skeleton, make a bad token right away. Turn after do the same, but now multiplied by 2. So this game is looking good. Hopefully no Ixalan's Binding on our Desecrated Tomb. An interaction that can come up if you have a Munitions in play is that you can sacrifice the Desecrated Tomb in response to an Ixalan's Binding. And there's a Lyra Dawnbringer, does die to our Vicious Offering, luckily. Although now I guess with Marshal in play it doesn't. Alright, so that's going to be a problem for later. But we can actually attack with our Scrapheap here, and if our opponent blocks, we can get back a Skeleton and then cast Vicious Offering with Kicker. To get rid of Lyra, opponent just takes it, doesn't want to take any risks. So now we can play our Tomb. And now we've got chum blockers for days. Opponent's gonna be gaining a bunch of life, so we won't be killing our opponent anytime soon. But bad tokens should keep us alive for a while. So we'll get back a Skeleton, make sure we can block Lyra this turn. And the next turn, the Skeleton can also block the Marshal, so we can get it back in our graveyard. The smart move for the opponent is probably to not attack with the Marshal anymore, so we can get the Skeletons in our graveyard easily. But between Squee and the Vicious Offering, we've got plenty of cards to still get back. And a Crested Sunmare is not bad here, since it's going to help the opponent go wide. And there's only so many chum blockers we can make a turn. And again, the Marshal proving to be pretty annoying here, since the Vicious Offering unable to kill the 6 toughness creatures. So yeah, there's a chance if we knew the matchup better, we were supposed to cast Cut on the Marshal instead of the Resplendent Angel. Don't think we want to attack with the Scrapheap into the Indestructible Horse. So we'll just be playing another Tomb and passing the turn. Or we could cast a Squee here. I guess casting Squee is more mana efficient. And keep the Otter Skeleton for next turn. So we'll make some Flying Bat tokens and ship it back. But I guess if our opponent's planning to attack with their horse tokens, then we will be able to get back our Skeleton and Squee. So we'll see here if our opponent just attacks with a flyer or if they try and attack with everyone. Opponent sends in Lyra and the horse. Think we're blocking with the Skeleton and the Bat here. And then next turn we can play Tomb and get back double Skeleton. Alright, so we're protecting our life total pretty well here, but our opponent is getting a horse token every turn. And the second Sunmare will make it so that now all the horse tokens will be indestructible, so even if we find Bontu's Last Reckoning, won't be able to deal with the Crested Sunmare. Alright, so this one's gonna be interesting. I guess we'll first need to find an answer to Lyra before we start making any headway. Could also consider keeping up mana for double block on Lyra, and then we can Vicious Offering with Kicker to take her out. That might be our plan. But for now we'll just play another Tomb. And then we can get back Skeleton, make 3 blockers, and then we can consider the Vicious Offering. Opponent cycles the desert and gets in there with everyone. Alright, so let's see that we don't die here, so we definitely need to get back 1 Skeleton. Makes 3 Bat tokens. We might not be able to afford to double block a Lyra this turn. Since if we double block Lyra, then we only have 3 blockers left, which is definitely not enough. So we have to get back another Skeleton here, make more Bat tokens. And they seal away to exile the first Skeleton. Fair enough. Wish we had a Vicious Offering up here so we could sacrifice it in response. Alright, so we'll have to do with just a single Skeleton, which is going to make things tricky, but we can try and take out the Banalish Marshal here. And that's going to make it easier to take out a Lyra. So let's go to blockers. Think we just block everyone and then take out a Marshal. Seems fine. So now Lyra can be taken care of, but of course our opponent still gets a million horse tokens here. Find a Skeleton, that's good. Our play this turn will be to play a Skeleton. And then we can get back Squee, I think. Make 3 Bat tokens. Should have enough blockers that we can still Vicious Offering. But I don't think we want to Vicious Offering right away, in case our opponent makes a different play based on the fact that they still have Lyra in play. And I don't think they'll have any instant speed bump spells to punish us. Could actually also consider Vicious Offering on one of the Crested Sunmares and then take out the other Crested Sunmare, but I don't think we'll be able to make enough blockers so we can put 5 power in front of the other Crested Sunmare. So I think the easiest solution is probably just to get rid of Lyra, the source of the life gain, and hope they don't have a second copy in hand. So we'll go to blocks, and then cast with Kicker, targeting Lyra, and sacrificing Reassembling Skeleton. And then we'll end up taking 5 down to 5. But no more horse tokens this turn, which is good. So how much mana are we working with? We've got 9 mana. Suppose getting back Dreadwander is more mana efficient than getting back a Skeleton. So we'll get back the Dreadwander, make a bunch of bats, and get back Squee. Alright, so what are we hoping to draw here? Another Vicious Offering pretty much to answer the Crested Sunmare. Don't think the Marshal changes much. I guess it makes it so Vicious Offering is not a great draw anymore. So yeah, we're hoping to draw Bontu, Munitions, something so that we can make use of our chump blockers. So we'll get back another Skeleton. Probably have to start attacking with our Scrapheap Scrounger just to get in our graveyard. and a Dread Wander instead, so we can attack for 3. Get back Squee, and play a Dread Wander. Alright, so we're starting to make more chump blockers than we need every turn. Another Banalish Marshal, again, doesn't really change that equation. And as long as our opponent keeps attacking with everyone on the ground, we'll have enough creatures to get back to make more bad tokens. So we always want to block with our recursive ones, and then make sure to block everything else. Alright, so we might be getting to the point where we can start attacking with a few of our bad tokens. Since if our opponent top decks another Lyra, we could be in trouble. Another Resplendent Angel could also be bad for us. End of turn, get back Skeleton. And Bontu's Last Reckoning is only going to clean up the 2 Banalish Marshals, so it's actually not that amazing. So my guess is we're just going to get back a Dread Wanderer. Get back a Squee. And then start attacking with our bats. Alright, so we're finally starting to get ahead on board. Also still have to remember our ribbons in the graveyard, which can be used as a nice fireball to finish off our opponent. And our opponent's gonna pack it in. They couldn't beat the infinite supply of bad tokens out of our Desecrated Tombs. So that's gonna do it for this gameplay. I wanna thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed. And as always, have a nice day. I also want to thank all my patrons for supporting the channel, and you can do so yourself as well over at patreon.com/LegenVD, where you get cool rewards for supporting the channel, as well as getting us closer to our goals, where with every goal reached, we will release an additional weekly series. So if you want to see more content, Patreon is the place to go.